Hi guys, my name is Samantha Helmick, and when I meet new people I love to brag about my job. I'm a teen librarian, which means that my community pays me to hang out with cool people like you and read awesome fiction all day long. I'd like to talk to you guys about some historical fiction today from unique perspectives, starting with my good friend Margaret Peter Haddock's Uprising. Uprising is about a true event that took place over 100 years ago. It was the Triangle Waist Shirt Fire. It was a factory fire that killed over 200 people. Back then, before we had laws, you could actually lock your employees into the building so they didn't take those extra smoke breaks or skip out of work early. Of course, they can't do that to you now unless, it's school, and then of course they can lock you into a building for 8 hours a day there. But this gives you a little bit of an indication why that stopped. It's a true story. My friends here are fictional. This is Yeti and Bella and Jane, and they all come from very unique perspectives. Yeti is a Jewish immigrant who goes to school and has been hearing a lot about all of this horrible stuff going on in factories and people dying unnecessarily and tragically, and she wants to kind of get started on some strikes. This is Jane, an American businessman's daughter who is just mortified that her father's involved with this and works with Yeti to kind of try to get the ball rolling for some strikes and some new laws. And then this is poor Bella. Bella's 14 years old and just happenstance didn't die in the fire that she would have most likely died in because she worked at that factory. She's a girl, she's 14, she's working 12-hour days at this place trying to get money for her family in Italy to come back home, and she's so easily taken advantage of that finally the right people come along and help her to tell her story and get the ball rolling. Margaret Peter Haddock's is also pretty great for ghost stories, so if you'd like to switch over and learn a little bit about the worst recorded industrial accident in the United States, this is a pretty good read. I'd also like to talk about Mercury. I can't really talk about any sort of subject without bringing in the graphic novels. I was very surprised to see how many graphic novels actually depict historical fiction. This one was written by Hope Larson. She actually won the Eisner Award for this guy. It's like the Oscar of graphic novels. What's really great about this is that if you're an aspiring artist, you can kind of see a wonderful exposition here. It's about 1985 gold rush in Canada. And it's Josie's story on a farm where they found some gold in them hills, and the family tried to hide it, but of course, as old gold stories, the drifter comes into town and says, "Yo, that's not safe. Why don't you let me hide that gold for you?" And as you can imagine, everybody's thinking he's on the make and distill it, but poor Josie, who's 15 years old and has always lived on a farm and is somewhat naive, believes him and loves him. On the other side, you switch to 2009 with Tara. She's actually a far descendant from Josie, so at least we know Josie made it in the end. Her family life is kind of horrible. Mom and Dad just divorced, the house burnt down, they gotta go live in this horrible, ugly farm. And life kind of sucks until she finds Josie's journal, and she finds out about the gold. And then there are unfortunately indications that the drifter was telling the truth and Grandpa shouldn't have shot him. So she goes and tries to find the gold with her new classmates and her new boyfriend, and you kind of get to go through that journey and see Josie on the left, Tara on the right. It's called Mercury because, even though it's not brought up in this book, mercury was used to purify gold and easily find it in stone. The last book I'd like to talk to you about is a really unique perspective as well. It's the perspective of a slave during the Revolutionary War, which we all fought for what? Yeah, freedom. Do you see the space plate? Do you see the lack of mouth hole? This is because this is what they put on slaves when they ran away. They weren't going to eat for days after they were caught again. They weren't going to breathe. They weren't going to cry out in pain. This is Octavian Nothing. His last name's Nothing because he's a slave and slaves don't have last names. The unique thing about Octavian is that he was actually captured in his mother's womb when she was a princess in Africa. And then they bring him over to post pre-revolutionary Boston to try to accumulate facts on him. They dress him up nice, they give him the best of tutors, he actually even has virtuosos teaching him some music, and what they're trying to prove in this quirky society is that African children are inferior intellectually, which obviously is bull hockey, and when Octavian proves them wrong, he runs away. What's really great about his story is that not only does he run away and try to seek his own freedom, he enlists in the war and tries to fight for us too. So the people who enslaved him, he tries to help not be enslaved by Europe. Pretty good story. M.T. Anderson wrote it. He wrote sci-fi, and he was really great about detail with books like Feast. So now he's really hitting you up with the great detail about historical fiction, really getting you there, putting you in the scene. So I totally recommend read it. In the links below, you'll see my handout. Great links about other books that I would suggest for this book talk, as well as contests where you guys can actually get free stuff for reading these books, so don't miss out. Thanks a lot.